Guess we'll go ahead and get started. And then as other people join us, that will be great. Want to make sure we honor your time, especially in this last few weeks of the year. I know you are all extremely busy being at Community Foundation. So we appreciate you joining us today. My name's Megan Cummings. I'm our Senior Vice President of Strategy, Impact, and Operations at CF Leads. And I've been on the CF Leads team for about 10 months now and spent the previous 13 years at Greater Cincinnati Foundation, first at our Women's Fund and then as our VP of Civic Advancement there. And so this program's really near and dear to my heart because I had wished I'd been in a program like this when I was at GCF. Witnessing it over these past few months is just to see how it shapes everyone's trajectory in their community foundations is really special. So thanks for joining us today. I was hoping we could just go around and hear where you're from and what role you play in your organization. Could we start with Erica?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Erica Knight, soon to be Erica Meadows. I just got married about a month ago, and I just went to get my new ID this morning. So I'm still in transition. But I'll answer to either. So I'm currently Erica Knight. I am the Chief Operating Officer for the Foundation for Appalachia, Kentucky, headquartered in Hazard.
Oh, awesome. I'm in Cincinnati, so we're not terribly far away, Erica. Thanks for joining us, and we'll wait for that last name to change, in your Zoom box as we talk today.
Work in progress.
Sounds good. How about Megan? Where are you from?
Hey everyone, Megan Brown. I am the Vice President of the Community Foundation of Eastern Connecticut.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. How about Gus?
Hi, everyone. I'm the Senior VP of Programs for the Community Foundation of Greater Birmingham in Alabama.
Wonderful. Great. South is represented. That sounds good. Let's go to Matt next.
Hi, everybody. I'm with Inovia Foundation, which is headquartered in Spokane, Washington. We serve 10 counties in Eastern Washington and 10 in Northern Idaho. And I am here as Director of Research and Community Impact.
Terrific. Matt, we were just at Inovia a few months ago for our CF Leads board meeting. Yeah. And it is such a beautiful area of the country. We already have plans to come back for vacation as a family.
Excellent.
So thanks, Matt, for joining us. How about Eric?
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Eric Zimmer with the Black Hills Area Community Foundation in Western South Dakota. And it's not as exciting as getting married, I guess, but at the beginning of the year, I'll be the Vice President for Philanthropy and Special Projects with the Community Foundation. I don't need a new ID for that, I don't think.
Well, you might. We need to update you in all the records, but congratulations, Eric. That's super exciting. Thanks. That's great. Thanks. How about Dorina?
Good afternoon from Lakeland, Florida. We're about halfway between Tampa and Orlando. I'm Dorina Gary. I'm the Chief Financial Officer here at GiveWell Community Foundation. And this morning we woke up, it was 33 degrees. So we're all freezing to death. But it'll be back to 80 next week. So we will survive.
Well, Dorina, I don't know why you have to, put that in our face. We got some snow. We had some squalls last night. That's what I'll call it. Some snow squalls here in Cincinnati. And it will not be 80 here next week, but
we don't even know what to do today. We have everything that we own winter pulled out. So.
And all we need is like a light jacket. So Thanks, Dorina. Really appreciate you joining us today. And Angie, if you're able to introduce yourself to the group and tell us where you're from.
Absolutely. Angie Pilgrim. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I'm not on video. I'm actually out and about in community today. So I'm joining you from the road via my wonderful phone. Thank goodness for technology. I'm the Vice President of Community Impact for the St. Croix Valley Foundation. And I woke up to -5 regular temperatures this morning, -20 with wind chill. So the St. Croix Valley Foundation, similar to Matt, serves a 2-state region, 6 counties right on the border of Minnesota and Wisconsin, along the St. Croix River Valley. 6 counties across both Minnesota and Wisconsin. So it's good to be here. I'll be listening intently, but you won't be able to see me. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries at all. And we'll send Dorina your way in a few
Right.
weeks, so
I know y'all have way better clothing for that weather than we do here. Ours is for show. It is not for function.
like actual clothing part.
Right.
Hey, Allison.
Hi, so sorry.
Well, yeah, you're totally fine. We have two other guests on the call today, and I'll just have them introduce themselves now, but they'll be talking to us later because they're actually alumni of ELI, and we thought they would be awesome to share their stories and experience and answer any questions you have. So, Michael, we'll start with you.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you today. And it's somewhere in the middle temperature-wise, but it's definitely winter in Pittsburgh. I'm with the Pittsburgh Foundation and serve as the Vice President for Community Partnerships and Learning. I've been here and served through a program officer role and into my new sort of external leadership role, and excited to participate today and learn from and with you all.
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for being with us. And Allison.
Hi, Allison Gerardo. I'm the Chief Impact Officer at the Community Foundation of Greater Fort Wayne in Indiana, Northeast Indiana. I've been in a variety of roles over on the donor side as well as on the grant making side. I'm now the Chief Impact Officer overseeing lots of departments. I've been there for 7 years. So
Wonderful. That's great. And I have two colleagues on the call today too, Rachel and McKenna. Do you just want to introduce yourselves quickly?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. My name is Rachel Reese. I'm the Communications and Digital Marketing Manager at CF Leads, and I've been here for about 3 years now, and I'm based out of Boston, Massachusetts.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. I'm McKenna Brandt. I am the Program Coordinator here at CF Leads. I've been here for a month as of yesterday, and I am based out of Dallas, Texas.
It's wonderful. Thanks, McKenna and Rachel. This is one of the things I love about CF Leads. Look at like all corners of the country represented just all together today. So I'm so happy you're here. Can you all see my screen? Yep. Okay, great. So we're going to go through, this is how we're going to spend our time together today. I'm going to give you an overview a little bit more about CF Leads, talk about our Executive Leadership Institute, give you, all the things that might be on your mind that you want to ask about. We're going to hear from our two alumni that have gone through the program and open it up for questions. But I hope this is a really, casual, informational time together. So anytime you have a question, just pipe up. And I noticed we have one other person that's joined us, Sylvia. Can you just tell us where you're from, Sylvia, and what your role is at your community foundation? We'll get back to Sylvia. I know sometimes you have to log in from these places, from weird spots, and it's hard to get off mute. So hopefully we'll meet Sylvia later. Okay, so really quick, what is about CF Leads? Let me start there, and just can you just put up your fingers 0 to 5? How familiar are you with CF Leads? Have you been involved in our programming before? How familiar are you with CF Leads? 3, 3s, 4s, 1. Eric, thanks. Good. Okay, great. So let me talk a little bit about our organization. CF Leads is Community Foundations Leading Change. We're a national network of community foundations. And really where our sweet spot is helping foundations go from more traditional institutions that are really focused on DAFs and grant making to stepping into this community leadership role where we can really affect results at scale in our communities. And I know that's a big reason why a lot of us are in this work. We want to see a measurable difference in our communities. So CF Leads brings all these community foundations together to learn through learning cohorts around specific topics, around individual leadership development like this Executive Leadership Institute, and so many other ways to make our field better and speed the pace of change in our communities. There are about 900 community foundations across the US, from very, very tiny community foundations with a staff of 1, all the way up to the largest ones with staffs of 60, 75, 100. And I tell you what, there's this thing that we say in the community foundation world that if you've seen one community foundation, you've just seen one. And I tell you what, that's just not our experience. We think there is so much in common among community foundations, no matter the size, and that we have a lot to learn from each other. And no matter where we are geographically, politically, the size of our staff, what we focus on, there is a lot of commonality, and we can really move forward together when we share that knowledge. So a couple things we do as an organization: we strengthen the community leadership muscle, we share field innovations, and we tackle the key issues of our time. So many of our foundations across the nation are working on big, wicked problems like economic mobility and affordable housing and climate change and racial justice and so many other areas. And we hope to learn from each other. So we're a place that we can do that together. Our staff is comprised of people who love community foundations. In fact, most of us came from our community foundations in our area. And as you can tell just by the folks on this call, we are spread all over the country, which really helps us understand what's going on in many different communities and help you apply that knowledge as we learn together. So I mentioned community leadership, and it's a big part of CF Leads. Again, we want to move beyond that very traditional kind of charitable bank place that community foundations started with the Cleveland Foundation, more than 100 years ago. There is this real longing in our community to have bigger results. So CF Leads really took that and figured out, like, what are those things that can help us move to that next level? During the cohort and throughout all of our programming, you'll hear us talk about these 5 kind of pillars for effective community leadership. And we think that as your foundation develops competency in these areas, that's what really can mobilize the work. So one, I'll just go through them really quickly. One is, how do we engage residents in envisioning and shaping our community? How do we make sure our work is infused with that community voice and what the people closest to the pain are doing and how they would like to see them work move forward? We spend a lot of time understanding how to commission, share, and use local data. We have some great data partners we work with to help you really dig into the data of your community that can be a flashlight to what you might want to focus on as a community foundation. We think it's critically important to work across sectors to see results. A lot of times you might have this experience too that, these big social issues are like, okay, philanthropy, you go and figure that out. Like, that's your problem to solve. When really there are so many people that need to be at the table to help us solve big problems. And there's talents and resources from other sectors like government and corporate that can be huge catalysts in helping us make progress. But often the community foundation can be the one to kind of bring those sectors together so we can problem solve. This is the one I love the most, if I had a favorite: shaping policies and systems. A grant, we're not going to solve poverty or racism with a grant. It really takes long-term systemic change paired with a lot of programming, paired with grant making, all the other things we do. But one of the ways we can see long generational change is through shaping policies and systems. And CF Leads really believes that community foundations can be a beacon to help that happen in the community. And finally, marshaling resources from public and private sources. I bet if we went around and all shared what our grant making budget is, it would be pretty impressive. But that really pales in comparison to the other resources that are available, both from government, from national funders, from tapping into our donors in new ways. So one of the ways we think we can speed this work is to really marshal resources beyond our own grant making. So throughout CF Leads programming across any of our learning cohorts or individual programs, you'll see a real emphasis on this community leadership and these competencies, and then really how to put these into play at your community foundation. And please stop me at any time if you have questions about any of this. Super conversational. So I'll move now into why you're all here today, which is to learn more about our Executive Leadership Institute. We run 2 of these leadership institutes, one for CEOs that will kick off in January, and one for VPs. And I use the word VP very generally. This can be a lot of C-suite level positions within your foundation. In the past, we've had COOs, we've had chiefs of staff, CFOs, chief impact officers, chief philanthropy officers. In some places, it's a VP of advancement. I mean, there's a lot of different job titles. But generally, it's an executive level of leadership within your foundation that can go through this program. So there's a lot of different kind of functions represented in these classes. This was not planned on Inovia, but one of our slides here mentions Shelley O'Quinn, who's the CEO of Inovia and also on our board. And she just talked about being this a must attend. No greater learning experience or opportunity exists in the community foundation field. Another person that went through said, for someone new to the field of philanthropy, ELI was a superb way to meet new colleagues and learn about valuable tools and lessons learned. One of the things I heard from the very first ELI I attended, someone in the cohort said, like, I found my people. And what they meant by that is like, they didn't have to explain what a community foundation is. They didn't have to explain like all the different intricacies of our field and the types of institutions. You can start at this higher level where there's already an understanding of what a community foundation is, and then you can really dig into how to do the work and what are some of the common challenges you're facing and how do you work through them. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of it. So ELI is a year-long intensive learning opportunity focused on community leadership for community foundation leaders. It is 3 in-person meetings in different cities, and it incorporates a peer learning approach, which helps participants identify and adopt effective practices that are relevant to their work. One thing I really want to emphasize today is, although we have some similarities from cohort to cohort, one of the things that's really important is, you know, we don't have a set curriculum. As the participants get selected for this, we really want to understand what challenges you're having at your foundation. We want to understand your foundation's profile, kind of how you're coming to this work. And then our team works really closely to figure out what are the best speakers to bring in, what thought leaders, what resources, so everyone gets a super personalized experience that's made for this class. So it's a really highly customizable curriculum based on the needs of each of our participants. Again, I mentioned like we have more commonalities than not. And so like this year, we had a lot of folks talking about executive change in their like CEO change at their foundations and what change management comes with that through the VP level. This class has talked a lot about, in our current environment, how to keep doing work on equity in a really smart way that gets results given the climate we're in and given those changing circumstances. So those are just 2 of the things that have come up really clearly from the largest foundations to a 1-county foundation in Iowa with a staff of 4. So there's just a lot of commonalities, but those are the 2 of the themes that have come up this year. So we really brought speakers in that can talk about those individual issues. Some of our program objectives for ELI, we want to create a better understanding of the key elements of community leadership for community foundations. When I put those 5 competencies up on the screen, you might know those back and forward. You might be really versed in those. This program's for you. And those things might have been brand new for you, and this program's for you too. It's really about how we assess where we are as a community foundation, and then figure out how your community foundation can take the next steps to kind of move up that ladder in implementing community leadership. We talk a lot about how to, sell that internally, how to get other folks involved with that. We talk about how to bring your boards along. We talk about the really specific building blocks of how to do policy and advocacy and marshal national resources. You'll get very concrete actions about those community leadership steps as well. Another big part of this program is build peer connections and seed potential collaboration through peer learning and collaborative problem solving. Allison will talk a little bit about this later, how that manifested in her class. But, when you graduate from ELI, you have these really deep connections with people across the country that are doing similar work. They're always going to be available to take your phone call and figure out, problem solve together about whatever you're going through. These classes become deeply connected and trusting. And I think that's just a key part of this program. It's not just learning together, it's building that network of other community foundations executives that, will follow you throughout your career. You're also going to make progress on a self-identified community leadership challenge. So as we talk to each person that's accepted in this program, we'll understand, where are you coming from in your community foundation? What's the most important thing for you to make progress on? And throughout the time together, we will have peer coaching where we come back to that problem in all 3 of the meetings to really talk about what are the next steps and how CF Leads can support you in making progress on that. So those are some of the program objectives. There's no hard and fast rules for who gets accepted, but I'll give you some guiding principles. One, you need to be on an executive level at your foundation, either that VP or C-suite level. Again, I mentioned we have another program for CEOs, so this is just for VPs and other C-suite. It's really helpful to have at least a year in the community foundation sector. Some folks have gone into the community foundation, maybe from corporate or government, and they're still just getting their feet wet about the community foundation model. We have found that that's not the best fit for this program. It's really good to just have at least a solid year in the community foundation field before you attend this program. Also, it's really helpful if you have at least a year in your current VP or executive role. Now, if that was like an internal transfer, you went from, philanthropy to a program role, or, that's fine, but kind of at that level, that's a really important thing too. We find people that are very, very new in their current position. They are just really inundated with all the things they need to learn in that position and don't always have the bandwidth or understanding of their foundation yet to bring that knowledge to the group. So we generally suggest about a year and a half at a community foundation and in your current role before you come to ELI. And also, we would love to see an organization-wide commitment to explore and address community leadership work. Whether you are brand new to community leadership work or super, super versed in it, the idea is to have progress, not necessarily a level of achievement, but the willingness to make progress on community leadership. I'll pause there and ask if there's any questions before we kind of move on to more of the details. And just feel free to come off mute. Again, super informal today. Any questions? All right, we'll keep plugging along then. As I talked about, the curriculum is really highly customizable to who is in the cohort. But some of the things that you will get, we do a community leadership assessment to help you understand where your foundation is kind of coming into ELI. We have a special advisor for each one of our classes. It's someone that's been in a role like you, and most of them have been an ELI participant in the past. And they kind of shepherd us through the 3 in-person meetings and really provide so much counsel and connections to resources and just another great sounding board to what you're learning. The fan favorite of all CF Leads programming, whether it's a topic or individual learning, is the peer coaching. And I think Allison and Michael will attest to this too. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but this always comes as the top rated activity at ELI's. And that is at every in-person session, we do peer coaching, which is a really disciplined model to understand each other's challenges and to provide peer coaching. We have a lot of resources at CF Leads, but nothing tops the learning you are going to get from your peers. And so there's a really facilitated way you do that I hope you take from ELI and apply in other professional spaces in your life, but that's always the top rated thing. And we do that at every session. And then as I talked about, we have topics that just naturally come up in each cohort. And we're really curating a learning experience around some of those topics that you have in mind. So here's the nuts and bolts of our next class. Again, 3 in-person meetings. Sometimes we do a virtual meeting in between. We will kick off April 23rd and 24th in Denver, Colorado. We'll then meet August 6th and 7th, and then November 5th and 6th. You'll see the 2nd and 3rd sessions are location TBD. That's because once the class is selected, we usually hold our second and third meetings in the host city of one of our classmates. And that's a chance for them to talk about their community foundation, maybe take a field trip to somewhere in their community, doing exciting work. We just find that that adds a lot to the content to get that kind of place-based experience in one of your peers' communities. So we'll kick off in Denver and then 2 other exciting places around the country that will be determined early into your experience. It's really important that you're able to make all the dates. Of course, certain things come up, but the commitment is that you are planning to be in person at each one of these meetings, and that really helps just have cohesion with your class and make sure that learning arc we have planned for you is fulfilled in its entirety. The cost is $7,000 for the tuition. There's a small discount for if you're an investor in CF Leads. And then we do have scholarships available on a case-by-case basis. So as you apply, there'll be a place to note that. That's usually dependent on your operating budget at your foundation. So we want to make this available to as many foundations as possible. So there are some scholarships available. In addition to that, the transportation and hotel, your foundation would pay for that. That's not part of the tuition, but we send those out far in advance so you can make your travel arrangements as soon as possible. That $7,000 fee we can break that up in a couple payments. You can figure out what year works best. I know how that goes at community foundations. Sometimes even as you get into the end of the year, you're like, oh, please just charge it this year because it helps us so much. So we are thoughtful about all those things. So that's just a conversation you could have with us. Okay, I will pause there and ask if there's any questions before we hear from some past program participants. Anything that's on your mind?
Just a real quick question, Megan. Do you need a letter of support or something from our CEO just indicating support of our application? How does that work?
Rachel, is that on the application?
Let me double check. I don't think so.
I didn't see anything.
I don't think so either, Matt.
Okay.
That's something I asked Rachel about that because that's something we've asked for from other learning cohorts. That if you're going through our economic mobility or racial equity learning cohort and you don't have the support of your CEO, that could be problematic. But I don't think it's part of the ELI
Oh, you know what?
application.
It says reference from your CEO. Here, let me drop this text in the chat.
So a reference may be met, but not like a permission, if you will.
Yeah. More of like
Thanks,
a recommendation.
Rachel. Yeah, thanks, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
Any other preliminary questions? Okay, well, now we're going to get to the super fun part.
Actually, I'm so sorry. I'm interrupting. I couldn't unmute.
Fine.
This is Angie. What is the traditional cohort size?
Oh, that's a great question. Usually we have found that 8 people is the best cohort size. So we try to stick to that. I think in our current cohort, we have 9, which isn't too bad, but we want to keep this a pretty intimate experience. And especially when you go through peer coaching, we want to keep those groups really small. So 8, maybe 9 people total. Great question. Thanks for that, Angie. Anything else? All right. Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce you to 2 of our alumni. And do you want your big picture on this, Allison, right now, or do you want me to stop sharing slides for a while?
It's whatever you want.
I am so pleased to introduce you to Allison, who went through the cohort 3 cohorts ago.
I think it was 2 cohorts ago. It was 2023, I think.
Okay. Perfect. And Allison, if you could just share with the group a little bit about why you applied, what the experience was like, and what have you experienced since your cohort?
Yeah, so when I applied, coming from a small to mid-sized community foundation, I was telling Megan, I really wasn't sure that I was even going to get in, because I think sometimes there's this perception that like it's CF Leads that works with national organizations. So these are all like billion-dollar community foundations. And I was so pleasantly surprised that my cohort was such a range. And there were community foundations that were smaller, were at about 250 million in assets. There were community foundations that were like 160 million in assets, all the way up to, $2 billion, $3 billion foundations. And so just having that range was really encouraging. I applied because I really wanted to network with, create relationships with, get to know, and also help problem solve at a larger level in Indiana. Most of you may be familiar, but you may not. There is a community foundation for every county in Indiana, and we are unique in that. And so we often don't, as a larger community foundation in the state, we often don't get the opportunity to interact with peers of our size or larger, just because most of the community foundations are much, much smaller than us. So that was something that I was looking for when I applied for the ELI program. And I think being a part of the cohort, I can really speak to what has happened post my class. My class, I'm sure Michael will probably say this about his class. My class, I feel like, was the best class, but because we just all really gelled and hit it off, and I was really looking for that, and those relationships, we went really deep, really fast, because as Megan said, you don't have to explain what it is that you do, because you're in a room with people who do the same thing and who are struggling with most of the same things that you're struggling with. And so you're able to go deeper with those relationships more quickly, which means the payoff at the end is even greater. So I still am in touch with, on a fairly regular basis, a handful of people from my cohort. A peer of mine was at Rochester Community Foundation in New York. She and I are in contact probably every once a quarter. Another peer of mine in Lexington, Kentucky, we ran into each other at ADNET and had dinner there. And so there's just these, he called me, they were going to hire a consultant. So he called me and asked me what we thought, because we'd used this consultant before. So it just creates these really deep relationships with peers that when you struggle with something, you have to go, who the heck am I supposed to talk to this about? Like, who am I supposed to access to talk to you about this? You have peers that you can just, hey, what are you doing about internal policies? Or, hey, what are you doing about community leadership? Or, I mean, it can just be a whole myriad of things. There's not one specific lane that you're stuck to with this program. It's really organization wide, and all of the things that you can learn from your peers in that.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much for that, Allison. Any questions for Allison right now? Okay, Michael. I got to meet Michael at one of the very first ELIs I attended when I started at CF Leads. It was their third session, and it was amazing coming into a group that had already bonded so closely. I mean, they were tight-knit. And so, Michael, if you want to share a little bit about your experience, and then especially what has happened since, because I think you've had some major payoffs on the community leadership front since your experience.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And it's great to be with you all. And thanks for the opportunity. And I would say, much like our cohort, I'm a bit of a marinator. So if we finish this call and you're like, oh, I have a question, I'm sure for Allison too, just call us or send us an email or reach out for anything about the cohort as well. I got involved and learned about the cohort model because our president had participated, and then one of our other vice presidents participated. And I was just really jealous of what and how she described how it helped focus her work and find some dedicated space to do really honestly, and I say this and I'm not paid by anyone, really exactly what Megan described is what happens in the program. It really isn't oversold, and it really helped get super deep within the group to both focus on how we implement and understand community leadership within this framework and then bring it back to our own foundation, but then also how do we communicate more broadly around some other strategies. I have a bit of a hybrid role. I feel like I'm sort of the Sesame Street character that doesn't belong a little bit at the foundation, because I have had a core grant making areas and others, but I'm kind of the pinch hitter, and I'm a recovering academic. So I feel like I was used to a whole career of like really specific activities, So fulfilling this role, and a big part of my role at the foundation is around data and evaluation and research. We were able to take the community leadership model that was really taught to us and really able to sort of unpack given the Pittsburgh Foundation's activities and develop a metric we use at the foundation for, are we a leader, supporter, follower, or observer related to those criteria, just for developing common knowledge and language. It's not a right or wrong, but the CF Leads cohort provided both a cohort of friends and colleagues, but then also a framework to kind of lean on. And just as Allison said, although Allison, I'm pretty sure that ours was the best cohort. I'm not sure. We received some data on that, but it was a really great group, and certainly both the leading and facilitation group was helpful. Going to dinner together was helpful, and the peer leadership was helpful. What was most helpful was getting away from what I do here and what you all do in your jobs, and having some dedicated space to work and think about that. That was worth its weight in gold for me, because I feel like I'm really excited about the work I'm doing here, but it's often reactionary and not a lot of planning. And the one thing I did talk with Megan about before, and which I hope it's okay to share, is one of the initiative areas, because we all have different things we would bring to this model. One was around post-COVID public health action work that a number of our community organizations were doing in the region. And they asked the Pittsburgh Foundation and my team to help facilitate some, how do we make this invisible grassroots infrastructure of public health leaders, nonprofit organizations that serve predominantly Black and Brown communities and immigrant communities in our region, that our DHS and our health department relied so heavily on during COVID and then kind of forgot about. And our leader, our community partner, said, that's what happens every time, right? When there's an emergency, we get leaned on, and then we really get skipped. So we were tasked with doing some collaborative research. We developed a design team. And frankly, my foundation wasn't really clear on why. Like, why would we do it? As a part of our mission? Is it others, if I'm not doing something else? The ELI cohort really helped me think through framing, orientation, responsive leadership, the framework in which we would do it. And through the 3 sessions of the cohort, we had to give updates on our projects, what was kind of a rock in our shoe, how are we moving forward? And frankly, I had a good bit of excuses of why I wasn't doing things. And it was my cohort that held me pretty accountable for both doing prep work, sharing it, and then some responsive action back with just really awesome people. That now I'll fast forward by saying we have a new health department director. All the design team members and I met together with the new health department director. She's been to each of their organizations. And I was just actually last night appointed to the board of health, not because of this work, but lots of other things. But because of this work and because of advancing some of the community initiatives, I think we have a real space for helping to really bridge the gap between our economically underserved, amazing communities and the health department system here in our region with the county. And I would attribute the writings and learning and thinking and the network that Allison mentioned, being able to reach out with questions and kind of feeling peer accountable to this initiative while also helping to bring the foundation along with the work has been really valuable. So it was really also fun. I was joking with Megan how I got hazed pretty well at the last meeting, which is really funny from a group of people I don't see all the time. But we became really close, I think, as Megan noted, because we all have such a shared common experience as community foundation people that we sort of got it. Like when I mentioned struggling through a technology transition, everyone raised their hand. They were like, oh my God, do this, don't do that, and don't put too much structure in. Salesforce is the way to go. And it was just really helpful to have that team. And there's probably 3 or 4 people I keep in regular touch with as well. Although preparing for this makes me want to kind of send a note out to everyone and say happy holidays. I miss everyone. Really great learning experience. I'm happy to answer any questions. I wasn't able to attend the second session because of weather delays in Pittsburgh. So we spent 8 hours in the airport, my wife and I. We couldn't get to San Diego. And the team really helped make it flexible so that I could call in remotely for that next day, which wasn't ideal, but things happen. And I did not feel like I missed too much except a really awesome dinner. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Megan, Allison, how was that?
Michael, it was great. Yeah, thank you so much. Love hearing also about, just how that community leadership work really developed and using some of the things that happened in ELI to do that. So that's great. Yep. This is just the time to ask any questions and have a discussion with Michael, Allison, if you have questions for me.
Hi, this is Kirsten Russell. I'm from the
Hi,
Community
Kirsten.
Foundation of Sarasota County, and we are new to all of this. So I'm really listening and learning. Michael, I think you kind of answered this, but I guess I would ask back to both of you. You know, a lot of times you go through these leadership trainings and it's all wonderful while you're there, but actually being able to take that framework back and do something innovative with it is challenging. Would you say that, it sounds like, Michael, what I was hearing you say is that a big part of this was really being able to make these changes happen and having, I think you said, a framework to lean on, and it sounds like some people to also lean on. Is that really the reality? Allison, do you feel the same way? Because I think that's really important. We've sent people and I've done a lot of leadership training, but I like to be able to be really practical about what that means coming back home.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think what this cohort helps with is even getting the how you work through the internal challenges to even implement something. Because everyone's in a different place along that spectrum. I think there were some of us that came in. I mean, there are some foundations that are doing all the things and have the capacity, right? And then there's others who we're not quite there yet, or we don't have, for whatever reason, whether that's internal to the community foundation or just your community that you're in, aren't ready for some things that other community foundations are tackling. And so I think this cohort really offers you the opportunity to work through some of those things to even get to the point where you can talk about the framework, if that makes sense. It helps you, I think it offers real practical steps to for change management, to start to have the conversations that you want to be having to affect the change. So I think this cohort does both. It can work on the initiative itself, and it can also work on the internal change management that has to happen to even allow you to be able to work on the initiatives themselves.
Kirsten, I'd only jump in by adding that in that letter of support and communication with our president, and then it sort of made an internal commitment that as I came back, I'd report to our executive team what we were learning, what we're doing. I shared some of the readings. I did that also with our departments at one of our all staffs, which sounds a little bit miserable, but it was really helpful because I was accountable here, but then also translating it through each of the sessions. And then people were curious to see where my project was advancing, and particularly curious again about the technology transfer from other foundations, so we could learn from that. That was totally unrelated to this work, but because we could lean on other partners in that space. So because other people here had done it before, we set up a way that it was embedded into the work that I was doing as well, because it's easy to get distracted. And it was also exciting to share. So I was accountable to, because of the investment, that the foundation was making in me, I felt really responsible to try to translate the findings further within the foundation the best I could. It wasn't painful. It went really well. So
Super helpful. Thank you both.
Any other thoughts or questions?
I think I saw, maybe this was on the slides, but can you just remind me the sort of the time frame? It's like fly in one day, full day, and then fly out like the afternoon the next day.
Yeah, great question. So usually we have a full day of programming that starts about 8:30ish with breakfast, usually goes to about 4:30 or 5, and then we have a team dinner, and that's on the first day. And then the second day usually starts again about 8:30 or 9, and we usually go to about 3 o'clock that second day. So for most cities we go to, you would fly in the night before. Often the team decides just to have an informal get together or drinks that night before. And you have a full day of programming the next day with a dinner. And then the next day up till about 3. So most people can fly back to their home city that night. So it's usually 2 nights away. That's helpful. Sometimes if you're going to a completely different coast, I know Inovia often has to do this. Sometimes adds another day in there depending on when the flights leave. But for most folks, it's about 2 nights away. Michael, and if you're Michael, there's some extra travel time. This is what he was talking about getting hazed for.
yeah, I wasn't going to actually share that because I don't know you all, but since we are all part of the same family, I'm just really anxious about being late for my flights for a variety of human and life reasons. So I made some comment about getting to the airport 2 hours earlier, and you would have thought it was the craziest thing. But now people from the cohort send me random messages about how they get to the airport earlier, they have a coffee, they have a Cinnabon, they're on time. And it's because of me. So
Because of
no,
you.
what I wanted to share, it was really super funny. I just want to share also that the support team at CF Leads was exceptional through our cohort. So Anita and the leads and the facilitators, it really was my job to do the work I had to do, but I didn't have to think about anything else, like travel plans and activities and coordination, and the materials were sent beforehand. It was that was really exceptionally well prepared so that I could focus on that content area. So just want to make sure to mention that too.
Thanks, Mike. And I'll make sure Anita knows that too. And
Great.
McKenna will be helping support this class. So if you're accepted in this class, you'll see a lot more of McKenna as well. Other questions?
If I can chime in too, I think just the guests that are also come in. I'm remembering we had one of my cohort members was in Miami, and so we were in Miami and met their CEO, who is just, if you've ever met the CEO of the Miami Foundation, like, she's incredible. And just to hear her work, what she's doing, how she's leading the organization, I mean, has been long lasting. I've taken so much back from what I learned from Rebecca, and have slowly started implementing that within our organization as well. So I think it's not only the stuff you're bringing to the cohort and working on, but also the people that you're exposed to that you might not normally have the chance to be exposed to otherwise.
Yeah, it's a great point, Allison. Usually in whatever our host city is, we hear from that CEO. We were in DC a few weeks ago. Antonia, their CEO, spoke and just shared, it was maybe a week after the election, and just shared how they're thinking about the work they're doing in racial equity, which was just felt really timely to hear about. And in other places, Michael, I think it was your cohort, we heard from their advocacy person in Chicago, and it was just so clear what their plan is and how they're putting the steps in, and the questions that were coming to her were just so sophisticated. So we always try to work in that local connection to their CEOs or staff that are doing exciting work in community leadership.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Megan, because I wanted to note, Allison, you were saying about being from a smaller foundation. We're, bigger, but in this cohort, it really didn't matter because the content we were addressing really applied, and the speakers did really help with not just coming in and sharing, here's some information and have a nice lunch, but really challenging and then asking questions on how we were going to bring this information back. So it felt really functional. I'm always concerned about the rock not overturned and missing something. And so it was really nice to have this frame for questioning assumptions, for thinking about new realities and bringing it back. Some of it was affirming and some of it was challenging some of, what we were doing and how we could do better. And for me as a staff member at a senior level, it was nice to have a little bit of a deeper bench to bring that back. So it's not just my idea and I read something, but how to really help pull other people into it. And that happened a couple of times. There are two of people in our cohort were working really closely related to climate change work. And it's a bad word now to say IRA, but the Inflation Reduction Act work and lots of networking activities that we're doing nationally, and having that cohort to think about how we transition our work and still do it effectively has been really valuable.
That's great. Thanks for that. Just as a closing, of course, we're available for a few more minutes to take any other questions, or feel free to email any of us to ask questions as a follow-up. But there's two QR codes here. One is for the application. Applications are due Monday, January 13th, 2025. How'd we get to 2025? It's crazy. Or as my son likes to remind me, that I was born in the 1900s. Have you gotten this from your kids yet? Mom, you were born in the 1900s. It's like, wow. And then the other one is to sign up for our newsletter. So even if it's a chock full of information about all of our programs and all of our resources and everything. So hope you at least sign up for the newsletter. And if it feels like the right time to apply, we would absolutely love to see your application for our ELI cohort for 2025. It's just going to be great. This is the program we just all look forward to, and it just builds such a great community to advance the work. So hope you'll be able to think about this in your organization. Rachel, do you have any closing?
Yeah, just one thing I want to note. If you go onto the application and download the Word doc, it doesn't include the section with the CEO recommendation. So just make sure that you go through the full Google form when you're applying. It looks like that CEO recommendation section was left off of the Word doc.
Great. And we'll figure that one out too. Thanks for that question. That spurred a lot of action on, what we need to do. Well, we'll stay on for a few more minutes if there's any other questions. And if not, thanks for joining us today. And I hope the end of the your year is super productive. I hope, checks with a lot of zeros and stock transfers with a lot of zeros come your way in these last few weeks. And hope you have a wonderful year and hope to see you at future CF Leads events. And if there's anyone that wants to stay on and ask a question, please do.
A quick question for you. Looks like at one time there was one just for the finance side. That doesn't exist anymore, right? It's all combined?
Yeah, we did it as a pilot, and actually it was all virtual and it was just for CFOs. And after piloting it, what we found is those CFOs could have just as good a place in the VP cohort, that actually people could learn a lot about that finance function and how you implement community leadership as with finance as another vehicle. So we decided just to make that all inclusive. So CFOs are welcome in the VP cohort, but we don't have a CFO exclusive cohort anymore.
Fantastic.
Good catch, though.
No, because y'all sound way more fascinating than a bunch of CFOs. Just saying.
I'm sure they can party with the best of them, right?
Some of the jobs are just so fascinating. I get excited about a 990, but there's real change going on out there.
Well, Dorina, what's really interesting about the CFOs, and actually I was talking to one of Michael's colleagues at Pittsburgh about this. One thing we hear about is like, oh, we just don't have the money to do community leadership in the way we want to, that, we don't have unrestricted money like that. And especially in Pittsburgh, what Phil was sharing with me, there's just so many ways that we can be creative about bringing resources to community leadership work. So I think that's something that the CFOs, can bring to this and learn in this cohort, are like ways we can finance this work that we might not be thinking of traditionally. So good question. Yep, we gave it a pilot, but we brought him back in the big group with everyone else.
Great. All right, thank you.
And the in-person is just infinitely better than the virtual cohorts. It's just no match. Anything else? Kirsten, Gus, Matt? No? Good. Well, thanks for joining us today. And Allison, Michael, thank you too for sharing your experience. It's great.
Thank you all. This is very helpful.
Good. Have a great rest of your year, and we'll